Let's do it.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of ARC 3D Live. I'm Arvin Tehrani from Contrast Reality, and with me I have Michael Rubloff from radiancefields.com and Azad Abbasi from GeniusXR. ARC 3D is an association that's focused on the future of 3D reconstruction, so including technologies like NERFs and gaussian splatting. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for future events. So that's my little intro. We're here today to talk about 4D gaussian splatting, which is poised to become like the next big frontier for media, entertainment, training, simulation. The list goes on. So let's get right into it. Michael, can you tell us a little about the beginnings of 4DGS and how it came out of 3DGS and to get us started?
Yeah, definitely. And so the way I kind of want to tee this up is even just starting with 3D Gaussian splatting, where we had a paper appropriately titled 3D Gaussian splatting for real-time radiance field rendering that was published in late April, I believe, of 2023. And you were able to reconstruct very lifelike 3D from normal 2D images, and you were able to get these things which are known as view-dependent effects from it. And this 3D model would be able to render in real time across a variety of devices. And so now that we had really lifelike 3D imaging, obviously a big question of it is, okay, if we can freeze the world in lifelike 3D, how long would it take for us to extend that frozen moment in time into a fully dynamic scene? And we take a look at the progression of imaging from going from photography to video, the invention of video. This was not something that was introduced within a year or two. It took decades for us to get from static capture to fully dynamic films or even just general playback. But as it turns out, in the world of 3D, it didn't take us that long to actually make the jump from static capture to dynamic one. And so I think it was legitimately within a year or just a couple of months, really, when the first paper came out from Gaussian splatting to start seeing the other dynamic Gaussian splatting ones. So for me, we've got one paper that was aptly called 4DGS that came out. And for me, the one that really caught my attention for the first time was the paper titled Dynamic 3D Gaussians, which tracking by persistent dynamic view synthesis, which is a paper from Meta. And what was quite interesting on that paper, actually, is if you take a look at the authors of that paper, not only is George Kopanis one of the authors of that, George Kopanis is one of the co-first authors of 3D Gaussian splatting, but there's also, it was also published by Jonathan Luton as well, who you might recognize from Meta, funnily enough, is one of the authors of Meta's Hyperscape, which we just saw the announcement from Mark Zuckerberg and the Meta team just last night. So there's a kind of fun little parallel between some of that work and research. But basically, yeah. So 4D or dynamic 3D Gaussian splatting was able to really take the lifelike 3D reconstruction of normal Gaussian splatting and add time as an actual dimension to these captures, and it essentially brought to life the lifelike 3D into people and just general motion. And so that's why I'm really excited to be talking about it today, because we've started to see it make its way out into the real world. But I guess I could also give a little bit of more of a history of some of the papers that have really caught people's attention over the last 2 years, really. And for me, kind of starting with the dynamic 3D Gaussians paper, there's a couple other ones that have really, I think, impressed me. There was one that came out called 4K 4D, and you'll see a trend here in just a little bit as well. But this started to create really lifelike 3D that began to also drop some of the VRAM requirements, because if you can imagine what compute might be necessary to actually process this level of data that's just being thrown into these systems is pretty wild. But this line of research started to drop the amount of VRAM necessary for it. And so from 4K 4D, I think, came another platform called Easy Fall Cap from the same group of authors as well, which actually looks like this actually was a SIGGRAPH Asia 2023 submission, which is crazy. This is the same year as 3D Gaussian splatting as well. But yeah, we're starting to see some of the foundations for some future work, where I'll jump ahead a little bit to a paper that came out towards the middle of this year that was called Free Time GS. And that is a paper that's otherwise known for the company that it came out of, which is called 4DV, otherwise known as Infinite Studio, which completely like took over social media for a couple of weeks in terms of people saying, we have, dynamic 3D video. And there was a lot of information that was like not necessarily correct from like the public about being like, you only need one camera to do this, or, this can be done with a single photo. None of that is true. But what is true is that the amount of VRAM that is necessary, the amount of compute that you would need to reconstruct it has rapidly fallen, including also the number of cameras that you need to introduce to actually capture things up front. You still need, you don't need, you can't do this with one camera. You can't even do it with a few cameras yet, but it is really impressive to see the rate of innovation across some of these papers. And so, yeah, I kind of wanted to chat about one final paper. There's so many that have come out in this like span of time. Another one that's been really cool and has been shown off actually quite a few times now has been Queen from the NVIDIA team. And basically, this is also a highly compressed version of dynamic Gaussian splatting. And they've done quite a few demos of it, beginning with GTC, which is NVIDIA's conference back in March. And then they showed it, I think, in like GTC Paris. And then it was also on display at SIGGRAPH 2025 just in August. And yeah, you are able to have very lifelike dynamic 3D running on a variety of devices, including virtual reality displays and some of the other, native 3D displays like the Looking Glass, for instance. You're able to actually see dynamic 3D without needing to have like a headset. So there's just been so much technical innovation across the last 2 years on this, but I'm really excited that we have an actual practitioner of dynamic Gaussian splatting as well. And so I kind of was curious, to ask you is, we've seen some of these like research papers, but like out in the real world, like, does this actually like work for you? Like, have you been able to really reconstruct moments in time dynamically?
Well, thank you for all the information, Michael. That was wonderful. And so, yeah, in the real world, it's kind of different than in the white papers, but the white paper actually is proof that it works, right? So that gives us lots of motivation to go forward and do all these tests. And coming back to what you were saying, you still need an array of cameras, right? You can't do it with just one or even four. I would love to do it with four. We're still at like 80 cameras, right, to get that good quality and the volume. And how we started was really in volumetric, way before NERF or 3D Gaussian splat even was something that we would even think of. So in 2018, 19-ish, we would actually do videogrammetry, right? We would do photogrammetry per frame, and then we would create a sequence with 3D files, and then we would try to play this somewhere. Very big, very hard, but not as big as PLYs. PLYs just are way bigger than whatever I would get with FBX or OBJ. But when we did see NERF and then the INRIA white paper, that first one, that changed everything for us, our view of how we would do this. So we still maintain the logic of, okay, well, there's a PNG sequence, then there's a 3D sequence that we've been working on. So we could do a PLY sequence. So that's where we started. And before looking at all the compressions or methods of viewing, right? So there's real-time rendering, processing, let's say, to view at a certain angle where you don't need to process everything or just what you're viewing. So these are harder ones to do, and it's a bit harder to roll out, right? So we really started with the PLY sequences. So easy codes, right? So easy volcap is one of them too, but just general scripts that were open source. That's where we started. Created very big files. It was about a gig of a frame, right, with the environment. And then we tried to do, well, not tried, we actually did it where we would create bounding boxes and just process what we need. So let's say the digital avatar or the subject. So processing just the subject and having this file becoming smaller and smaller. before even compressing, and then compressing in different methods. Like we tried to do our own stuff pretty hard. Then we saw like open source compressions where we used those. We were able to go from like 800, let's say a gig at first, then like 800 megabytes, and then all the way down to 150 megabytes with just the subject, and then now down to, let's say, 30 megabytes with the compression. It's still big, but it's still way better than before. This we're able to now we were able to create a codec with that and make it play on the web through open source again. Lots of stuff from Play Canvas, Super Splat. Shout out to those guys. Shout out to Postshot. Shout out to everybody really in the community that's tight. I think I haven't given much as I would want, but I'm getting there. And so what I've been doing is trying to commercialize this stuff with some clients, especially in universities, where they would use these assets to train either themselves, staff, students, virtually, all of the above. So it was a big challenge at first. Like it was all brand new, right? So going from being experts in reality capture, let's say, and then now it's like, okay, well, there's nothing. There's just codes. And what do we do? So we did do the hard way, but now we're at a place where it's really cool, where we could actually do all of this stuff and have it properly played back, either on the web or inside a gaming engine. All the
Coming from
open
a
source has been
volcap,
foundational for us, really.
coming from the volcap background, like, were there advantages to using 3D.js versus the old way of doing it with like depth cameras? Like, was it making not only the process different, but was it a better result in the end?
So that's a really good question. So we were not like other volumetric studios. We never actually raised or opened up shop to big projects. We were really R&D, and we went stealth mode for a while, working on cinematic cameras instead of LiDAR and RGB. So we never actually touched that pipeline at all. I know it because, you have to know these things for photogrammetry, but we were reconstructing without any LiDAR information. So that was our difference at the very beginning. We had cinematic cameras. We have a partnership with Sony, so we had access to different types of cameras, and we decided to go in a budget way with the RX02 plus the controller. So this gave us the ability of having a cinematic image, right? Either 4K at 30 frames or a 1K at 120 frames. We would do photogrammetry with that. So the quality wasn't very good, right? As you might know, the quality wasn't very good because we were only using cameras, like just image. But when Gaussian came out, for us, it was like heaven, because we're like, we don't have that info and we don't want that info. We only want the images in a really good quality with lots of lighting, right, at the best quality you could have. And that's what we took right away, or the extracted frames that we had from like 5 years ago, and right away we were able to get really good results. So the difference is day and night in results. There are some caveats. We don't have a mesh, right? But in the way we see it is, we just need to view it in 3D. We don't need the actual 3D file, not in these cases that we're doing, especially in VR, let's say. I don't absolutely need to have the mesh, especially for entertainment, let's say, or visualizing, right? As long as it looks 3D and I could see it. Now, if you want to go into work softwares or apps, yes, you might need the mesh and all those things. And I think it's coming, right? All of these tools are coming where you'll go from a PLY to a mesh. But for us, we didn't need it. We just wanted a 3D representation. And that 3D representation has to look good. So the mesh wasn't needed for us, especially for VFX too, the way that it's being treated now, right? So it was a different thinking. A lot of people still don't get it. It's like, well, how am I going to do all that? It's a different way of thinking. It's a 3D representation of what you see, basically.
Yeah, we're literally entering like an age of imaging now, where we've have always had 2D in our lifetimes, and we're really allowing ourselves to extend our world into a very, equally high fidelity 3D representation of it, but without like some of the things that historically have come with the 3D industry, where the mesh isn't necessarily leading this. It's really about like the view dependent effects and the lifelike 3D that's coming out of both like Gaussians or like nerf based or voxel or ray trace based approaches to these captures. I am curious too, because when Gaussian splatting first came out, as you mentioned, like the file sizes and the compute necessary was just like much higher than it is today. And funnily enough, I believe that Play Canvas actually just open sourced their a new version of SOGs. This time, I think it stands for like spatially oriented Gaussian instead of self-organizing Gaussians. And but that is to say, as you have been following along the open source like community and path, like when you've seen some of these papers come out that say it dropped VRM requirements by like 400 times or something from just a single paper. Is this like a large like indicator to you in terms of like how high the ceiling of this technology like could be?
Yeah, definitely. So, well, it depends. I think everything is changing every day, right? So it's going so fast now. It's exponential, but everything that's coming out is in the right direction. If you ask me, in my opinion, relighting, and I just saw that like 2 days ago too when it came out. Like it's beautiful, and I think that beautiful meaning that I love all this stuff. I'm very passionate, so for me it's cutting edge, and it has to be. But now, how to democratize all of this, how to make it where everyone else could use it and also view it, I think that's one of the big challenges. But
Yeah,
we're getting there, right? So 4DGS is becoming something that's doable. I think the bottleneck, the hard part is the camera array, like the system of cameras. And even if you had 10, 12 cameras, how do you sync them, right? So that's, I think, a big part of why we're not seeing more of it. Because if you could have done it with your phone, then it would just be everywhere. Just like we saw at first, Luma AI had all that stuff, and then Polycam, and then now everything that's open source through Supersplat or PostShot. There's so much content now, especially
yeah.
also with the mix of like lidar, right? So X grids, you know it very well. Uh, all of that is democratizing it. But yeah, I think that's where we're still at, where the cameras are, where the bottleneck is for actually having 4DGS more democratized.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting avenues of this is the recent announcement of the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max, which are going to both feature, Genlock support. And so while, it remains to be seen, like how high fidelity we can get from, several iPhones chained together, even though some of the 4DV demos are using, normal iPhones, which is pretty mind blowing. I think it's going to do a lot to actually like help us curate like a foundation of people who are creating, spatially designed content. Because when we see like the iPhone 12 Pro, for instance, and the inclusion of the lidar scanner on that, despite at the time not having like an explicit use case or general familiarity with its capabilities to the public, over time, there are apps like Scaniverse and Polycam that really were able to leverage it into making very, large scale businesses. And so I'm curious if like the 17 Pro and Pro Max will be going down a similar pipeline with the Genlock, kind of entering a dynamic 3D future.
I'd love to, right? And my question is, how many can we genlock? So, from my knowledge of genlocking, there will be a cap, depending on like that the genlock hardware probably could do 8, 10, 12, I don't know, or maybe 4. So maybe you have to multiply these, but it's really, really interesting and fun times. We tried back in the day to do it with the Samsung S20s. uh, we were able to, but you had to do lots of coding, and we were like, it wasn't real genlock. It was a frame sync with, we got pies, so it was complicated, lots of troubleshooting. So yeah, it feels like to me, and especially what we saw today, and hopefully you'll tell us a bit more. Well, yesterday at Meta Connect, right? I think there's a lot of the big boys that are in it, right? They are already touching Gaussian. I just think that they don't want to use those words either, right? They want to Apple will never use the real words, right? They'll create their own version of something and democratize it, which is great, right? So people get to see what it is, and they get to touch it. That's great. Um, and looking just at like what you were saying, the iPhone 12 with the lidar, that was like game changing because now you could just take a few pictures or videos and just have a 3D environment or an object, which is incredible. Couldn't have done this a few years back. No one would have imagined this.
Yeah. And one of the things I also want to highlight, even the rate of which these foundations are being built out and are actually working is, I think the most high profile use of dynamic Gaussian splatting so far has been the recent Superman movie. And for this, I don't think it would count as a spoiler, but like every single shot of Superman's parents in that movie is dynamic Gaussian splatting, and it looks so perfect in terms of its fidelity that like I don't think anyone, myself included, would be able to tell that it's fully 3D. It just looks 2D to people. And one of the things I like to mention about that project is that this was not captured, this year. This was like not captured any time in the recent past. This was captured close to the actual like publishing of 3D Gaussian splatting. And they were building out this pipeline on an emergent technology in a very like high profile and high leverage position, and we're able to actually deliver something that could go on IMAX screens and actually be enjoyed by people in a very like professional capacity and hold up to it. And so it's crazy to see that the frameworks that, while they're still being built out and being built as people are using them, are actually holding up in that on the largest screens in the biggest environments. So I'm really excited to see like the future of VFX and just how people in media will be translating stories.
Yeah, I loved it actually. So I watched it. It's good that you mentioned. I watched it and I was like, "What's going on here? There's something." So I thought it was an effect, right? And then when we found out, all of us, well, you mentioned it to us. It's like, oh my god, it actually does. I see it now, but I also see the good work they did, and that's what's good about having a good cinematic array of cameras. Not that I want to promote all that all the time, but meaning that they captured this 2 years ago and their data was good. You could just have a new pipeline and process it the way that you should now. And I think for VFX, they're kind of used to all that, right? They kind of have new pipelines. Yeah, there's some standards, but they always have this little new pipeline for this new little thing. So, and they love those things, supervisors, VFX soups love that stuff. Like, hey, okay, we're gonna do it like this. That was amazing. Shout out to Infinite Realities and Framestore for doing all that good work and spreading the word of Gaussian Splat, 4D GS. Yeah, I'm very excited about all that too. Very good work, and I think it's just a beginning. So now
Right.
this is proof that you could actually put it in a movie, also a game, and XR, previs, and all that stuff. But the movie one is the ultimate one, and we've passed.
Yeah, exactly. And when I spoke to, because I got to speak to the VFX supervisor, Kevin Sears at Framestore, and one of the things that he was mentioning to me is that because everything was captured up front and they had an actual 3D reconstruction of them, they were able to essentially film in post, which sounds like really weird, but basically as the actual shoot progressed or the actual film progressed, they were able to continually like revisit and readjust and center the camera or like choose what actually would best convey the story without needing to really put in any additional cost into the shooting. While they were quote unquote reshooting, they didn't actually need to spend any additional money on this.
Yeah, it was virtual processing rendering, right? Rendering, let's say. So yeah, I could show you guys a few tests that we did like that, and there's like new tools that came out that you could create backgrounds. All that stuff is super amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
I think that the future of movie making is really, well, part of it is for sure you want to shoot outside, natural lighting, all that stuff is beautiful. But for the studio side, I don't see the green screen being there anymore. I really see the LED stage and also the volumetric capturing. So now your actor comes in, you could actually film him with the background that you want on the LED stage. And then you could also have him in the volumetric dome, get a few shots or different shots, and then have those as your reserve shots where you could place the camera where you want. And in both cases, it's the same background. The background that you used in the LED stage becomes the background for your digital human, your asset, your subject, let's say your actor, right? I don't think they'd like me saying your asset, but yeah. So it's just we're 3D, right? In my mind. Let me show you guys a few little things that that they're not brand new, but very cool. Do you guys hear the audio? Should I? Sorry.
Here, maybe let's just do from the actual video.
Sorry, guys, messing it up.
No worries. I think there's the volume bar on the left.
I don't think we need audio. So that goes from we were in the stage, the volumetric, then we did the environment. Well, everything was there. So you saw the environment. Let me pause it for you guys. So this is an actual video from one of the cameras. So in this setup, we have 80 cameras. This is the front camera. And we'll take all these videos, sync videos, and process them frame by frame. Now what we're looking at is just one frame, and why you see black spots is that this is from a year ago. We used to have a green carpet, so that's been removed, and the lights have been removed to just make it easier for computer vision with the white. And then from there, we're showing just one frame around. Then we removed the full environment. Now he's in 4DGS. He's moving, and if you see, there's little flickers there. That's because it was filmed at 30 frames, and we're playing it at 30 frames. But obviously, it would be better if you could, have it in a higher frame rate. And for VR, let's say, it always is, let's say, 72 or 90. So those are different things that we could actually look at and process, and what we were saying, right? Processing after compression, all that stuff is what makes it different. Let's look at something else. This is a basketball player. This one does have some compression on it. These are all at least a year old.
Yeah, that's wild.
I think we're gonna see it in VR as well, or we're just showing just moving around just to show quality.
Yeah, and even the pinstripes are visible, and consistent on him.
This is another workflow, I think. So it went from one frame in the studio, then some color correction, and then this is like an AI generated background. So it's just one frame, but it's just to show how, you could really do anything. And this could be previs.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that this is, how some directors and directors of photography are beginning to collaborate with each other too, to plan out the shoots in advance, but in a totally 3D capacity.
That's me and Rich, CTO, just messing around. So we created this AI environment of an alley, and then, we just put a frame, just messing around, saying what's up. So you could do all those shots, right? You could do this shot any way you want after, and the quality's good. So this is raw material, right? There's no color correcting. There's nothing. It was literally imported into SuperSplat and just rendered. This is the rawest, worst quality stuff, which is really good.
Right. Yeah, and I'm curious too from the post-processing side, if you could just talk about is there a lot of post-processing work once it's been trained to get it to look good, or because people I feel assume you have to just do an immense amount of work after.
Actually, well, yes and no. It depends where you want to go and how you want to treat it. So let's say if we were to divide it into three, let me show you guys a deck of what I have so we could look at it. You're also seeing our partners here. So we've recently partnered with Beyond Capture Studios to offer everything possible for what's needed. So from hybrid to 4D, we currently in Montreal have the biggest motion volume in the world. It's huge. We have a dome in there, and we have different setups. We have some really cool projects upcoming. So with one session, we're able to do everything that's needed for what we do: volumetric, motion, photogrammetry if needed, Gaussian splat, 3D and 4D, environments, props, costumes. Then all of this to do what? To have a virtual integration, right? To integrate it into your virtual pipeline and XR. Obviously, XR could also be previs. Both of them could be previs. This is our like simplified pipeline where you capture a subject and you could have a mesh and a point cloud. These can be used in games and in cinema. I'm not mentioning XR, but we understand that when we say game, real time, we mean XR as well. So AR and VR. Um, this is some of the results, right? So from the dome, we could go to a mesh, a really good mesh if you take your time. So mesh and metahuman is actually more work right now than if I was just to have a 4D GS animation, right? A dynamic 3D Gaussian splat. Why I'm saying this is because here you have lots of work after your scan. So you have to create that good mesh, you have a lot of cleaning to do, and then to bring that mesh into metahuman is a lot of work. And then to animate that metahuman with motion capture for the body and then the face, this is a lot of steps. With Gaussian splat, we're cutting all of those steps, right? We're going from the actor actually acting, and then we have it in a version where you could play it back in a game engine or Houdini or the web, right? These are all, and it's just going to get more and better, right? We're going to have more tools and it's going to be a better quality. So for us, the real difference was quality. And because we that is what we were trying to do from the beginning, to cut these steps, right? Cut them, creating the whole mesh and cleaning it and all that, and then motion capturing it. Even though we do that, volumetric for us was a way to cut all that. And so that's why we had to go with meshes, right, when we were doing that, and we didn't have lidar, like I was saying, so our quality wasn't good. And because we had movement, we had to have a bigger volume, and bigger volume means less quality. But in the same volume, we have now a very, very good quality. So this was captured probably 3 years ago, but reprocessed and rendered in Gaussian splat looks much better. Um, right? So
Yeah,
this
and I
could
think it's
go into a game right now, right away, right? Sorry?
yeah, and I feel like it's important to note as well that like the input for Gaussian splatting are still just 2D images, and so given that you've captured this at some point, it's not like you're needing to buy like some proprietary system or something like this. If you have something captured, you can at least try to see how it comes out.
Yeah, that's what's beautiful about Gaussian splat is that so I'll give you an example. Some of our client studios have RXOs, but they didn't have LiDARs, right? And they were getting the results that we were giving them. And other companies would tell them, well, listen, you have to add all these LiDARs, this and that to get the better quality. But when we introduced Gaussian Splat to them, it's like, oh my God. So we don't need to add anything and we could get the really good quality. So they loved it. This project was with Colin, a very talented artist. He splash paints. He's very popular on TikTok. So we actually did it in 120 frames, and we were able to go get those details that you can't actually see even in real life with the camera, and then put it in 3D. So other things that we also do is previs, right? Volumetric NPCs, crowds. Um, Coming back to environments, now it's super easy to do it. So this was done with an iPhone, camera aligned, I think in Metashape or Reality Capture, and then probably Post Shot or something very simple, right? This is like you could do this in a few hours by yourself. So this is a game changer. Um, So these are some of our studios. So like I was saying, we have the biggest volume now, and our dome is in there. So we're doing some really cool stuff. What we're delivering currently to most of our clients is either real time or cinematic. So that's where we differentiate it. So where are you going? Do you want it to be real time, or do you want it to be something for cinema or movie or film, right? And the difference there is that uh, we have more compression on the real time, no compression at all, or maybe some for the cinematic stuff. And then the cinematic stuff, they might want meshes as well. So when we are filming in our dome, we're able to extract and create the mesh and create the 3D GS. And then for both of them, we have the codec to play the mesh and play the 3D GS. So in photogrammetry, it becomes videogrammetry, and in 3D GS, it becomes 4D GS. And some people get confused sometimes with the 4D. I think it's proper for us to say that it's because it's 3D plus the fourth dimension, which is time, so it's 4D. So it's a 3D animated 3D, right, with time. This is some relighting stuff, super cool. This was done by actually one of our friends, Zizi, as a test, and so he's really good at this stuff. And that's kind of what we do at the studio. I could go into extras and stuff, but right now we're delivering three types of qualities: previs, game ready, and cinematic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's really cool to see the relighting capability too. I know that's something that's like very much requested from the world at large. And it's cool to see that, here's an example of it being
This
done.
is from the Houdini, the first paper that was, well, the first
From
plugin.
GSOPs?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not the new one, right? The old one. So
Yeah.
this is literally from 7-8 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
And then we, like to have cinematic, so like Dark Knight, Nolan, different types of lighting, just to show what you can do. And then like we show the clients, like this is an example, like we show the background, the front, the back. And just going back to a last video that's super cool, I'd like to show you guys. So this was something in yoga. This is in 4D-GS, but then I'll show you guys one frame. Did we all look at this? I'm not sure.
I think parts of it.
Yeah, parts of it.
So that's one frame. Then she'll get animated. She's talking. One thing I'd like to mention is that photogrammetry was almost impossible to have someone talking properly, right? Even when you mesh it and you do a metahuman or whatever you're trying to do, it's never going to look real. Here, I'm showing her talking because I want to see, look, it looks real. She's actually talking. So I could have an actress or an actor, an actor, and I could reshoot anything, anytime, which is super cool, right? I mean,
one of the directions I'm going to be really interested to see how it progresses is actually going to be the simulation of this. Although here, we'll get so.
This one here, sorry, you could speak as you want. I'm just showing it. So this background was created with Marble from World Labs. Shout out to World Labs. In a few minutes, right? We just prompted, and then we took one frame of Vicky and we put her in there just as a test on Super Splat, just like a very fast render, and it looks amazing. This was done in under 15 minutes.
Yeah, that really is like incredible. that you can do this, and with World Labs, you literally don't even need like a camera.
Yeah. So, sorry. What were you saying? I forgot.
So one of the directions I'm really interested in about the dynamic, Gaussian splatting is going to be even like simulation-based tasks. So some of the examples you showed were also coming from like the sports industry, for instance, where you have people in like basketball or golf or just I don't know, like volleyball or some other like industry like this, where I think that we're actually going to start to see these teams start to embrace volumetric capture at time of performance, and then beginning to like simulate like how to actually improve player performance as well, and be able to like watch back everything in full lifelike dynamic 3D, which isn't really being like discussed yet. I think it's maybe a little bit.
It is like, but in different places. So I could tell you a bit more about what we've worked on. I don't know if you guys remember the Canon project with the NBA, the Cavaliers. So that was photogrammetry. We looked a lot at that. We looked at different ways of doing it. We actually went and talked to the teams and looked at the results. So that wasn't ready for broadcast. However, they used it for trainings, right? They could actually look at it. The coach could say, look at how you're moving over there. Even if it's low quality, you still recognize what you're doing. You see who it is. That was videogrammetry. Now today, fast forward to today with Gaussian splat, it's a game changer. So one of our pipelines is live 4D, right? I know it's going to sound crazy because of all the GPUs that are needed, but we're going to get there. It's going to be sooner than we think, and we're going to have sports entertainment in a game console in VR on your iPad, and on your TV. All of this is going to happen. And you're not going to watch sports the way that you watch it now. You're going to want to follow the ball. You're going to want to see these crazy replays that have been directed by someone real time that has a headset, right? All these different things are coming. So we are working with some entities. It's still very hard and it's costly. That's the big part of it. It's costly. We still need 150 cameras minimum, broadcast cameras, and the placing. Where do you put it? There's fans. This arena. There's different entities in the arena. All these different things make it hard. But as you saw, our big volume stage is kind of built for that. We're going to start testing a lot of these things. And not just for sports, but also big crowds in a fight, let's say, in a movie. So and in games. So this is what we are looking at. It's hard right now. I think the novel way of doing it is not processing / rendering everything, just what you're seeing, right? Or what you want to see. And even if we go slowly, right now at an NFL stadium, there are a bunch of zip lines and cables and robots roaming around, right? This is expensive. There's a lot of things. And to get that specific shot is really hard. It's years of work that they've done. I'm not saying that that's going to disappear, but it could, right? If you are able to capture the full game with, 80 cameras at some point or 60 cameras, and you have it in high quality, now your fan could decide what to see, where to go, how to look at it. But also for broadcast, your directors could put the camera anywhere. They could put the camera on the ball if they wanted to, like impossible shots that you've never seen ever in your life before, right? Will be possible. I have some really nice demos that are under NDA that I can't show, but we're there. Like you could follow the ball, you follow the player, go slow-mo, go around, like all that stuff. You guys know it's possible. Now, how long is it going to take for these changes to happen? It's kind of like from HD to 4K, or not even, let's say from 720 to 4K, or maybe not the good analogy, but it's going to take a cycle, right? Because if you have to buy new cameras and new setups, there's a cycle that's going to happen. There is a natural cycle in arenas anyways, right? So I think we're going to get there. Now, why I keep talking about sports is that because it is the biggest LBE ever, right? Location-based entertainment, the sports, the stadium, that is the biggest LBE that you could ever have. Now that gets streamed to TV. Where is it going to get streamed in the future? Is it a game console? Yeah, maybe. Is it a VR headset? Yeah, maybe. Is it in an exclusive app? Well, that's already happening. Are these companies that are, streaming going to want to onboard these? Yes, they have all tried. I don't know if you guys remember Intel trying all this stuff with NFL and basketball, and then Canon trying it with basketball. They were just too early and they didn't last long enough. So there are some other entities like this that are working on these, that we're participating in. So the future looks immersive. The future looks 4D. The future is yesterday, and is 3D. It's spatial. Hopefully, I didn't talk too much, but yeah, I'm very excited about all this stuff, especially 4D live in sports. That's where I see it fit. I don't see it really anywhere else than sports, or maybe or events, right? So stadiums and arenas. So you have a live concert that you want to capture, and you want to make it crazy behind the scenes. Well, you have any angle ever that you ever wanted, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think it's gonna happen a lot faster than people imagine. I know firsthand there are quite a few things in development currently that some things take 2 years, like Superman. Superman was the first one because they've been working on it for so long. They're not the only ones that are
I'm
doing this.
excited to see what's coming, and hopefully we could all showcase some of these too.
Yeah. Arvin, have we got any questions that have come in?
We don't actually have any questions on the live stream right now, but if you guys want to kind of give out your final thoughts on this, on where, and I think you kind of touched on it already, Azad, but like where you kind of see us going and what the next big thing that you're excited about is that's coming up.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my thought on this is a bit extreme, but I feel like I have seen enough evidence and the conversations that I've had over the course of this year and the year prior to say that like imaging is shifting into a very lifelike 3D capacity, and that while we've always had 2D as a fundamental imaging medium, I don't believe this is the case any longer, and that we are going to document and experience life in static and dynamic 3D going forwards. And so I feel pretty certain about this. We do not live in 2D. We live in, a dynamic 3D world. And I think that the foundational point has already been crossed about like where we can be in a short period of time. I don't think it's going to take us 50 years to get to a dynamic 3D reconstructed world. I think we could do it much shorter.
I agree 1,000%, and I love the way that you said it. Like we live in 3D, right? I'll give you guys a really funny story. One day I was filming with 2 cameras, right, for stereo, and someone asked me, "Why are you filming the same thing with 2 cameras?" And I said, How many eyes do you have?" He said, "2." I said, "Do you know why? Because that's what gives you depth." And he said, "Oh my God, you're crazy." I said, "Yeah, thank you. I want to be crazy." So I really agree with what you're saying, Michael. I think that we're in it, right? We're seeing that shift where we're gonna go to spatial. All the tech companies are backing it. Like the hardware is there. Now it's just the adoption that's gonna come slowly, but I think it's gonna go fast as soon as it like goes kind of viral at some point. And I think that's going to happen with these bigger tech companies using it, just like we're seeing right now. And then movies and games and all that. Hopefully, we are part of that, right? Part of pushing forward, especially you with the website and all the information that you keep sharing everywhere. So I want to give you a thank you for that too, right? Arc 3D as well. Shout out to everybody, the whole family, everyone that is associated to Michael, Arvin, me. Thank you, everyone. And the future looks immersive.
I love that. I think that's an awesome ending point right there. Future looks immersive. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll be back next month with another installment of Arc 3D Live. So we're signing off here. Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Azad, for joining us and sharing your awesome insight. We're blown away by all of it. So thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.